Welcome to my next Lost. Season 3 episode review video. Before I get into that though, pretty important, if you are caught up to the point where I am and where you're watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, if you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already seen Lost all the way through 3 different times. It's one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. I love the show, but I wanted to rewatch it to let it resonate. But I'm not the only one that's currently watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffee Man, who you see in my comment section for Lucifer, Dexter Original Sin, Breaking Bad, and the original Dexter, is actually watching Lost for the very first time. So join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show, but no spoilers past this episode. So with all that said, this will be Lost, Season 3, Episode 13. The title of this episode is called The Man from Tallahassee. And this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watching the episode. So we start out with a John Locke flashback. He's being interviewed by a government worker about his disability payments. She asks whether he has tried to find his biological father and why he has stopped submitting his therapy bills. She says he has stopped therapy, or he says he stopped therapy because it was a waste of time. So she suspends the payments, saying the suspension is temporary and he can apply again as soon as he starts his therapy for depression again. Back on the island, Locke, Saeed, Kate, and Russo watch Jack and Tom throw football. Juliet joins them and they happily speak. They go to a house and Juliet wheels Ben out in a wheelchair. They talk and Ben shakes hands with Jack. Locke mentions this is going to be complicated, when more complicated than we thought. And then Kate, Saeed, and Locke are confused by Jack's behavior. Locke guesses that Jack must have a good reason for it and suggests waiting until dark before talking to Jack and attempting a rescue. And at some point during this, Russo, the French woman, just kind of disappears. Back to our flashback, John Locke eats a TV dinner while watching an episode of Exposé. More on that in the next episode. There is a knock at the door. A young man introduces himself as Peter Talbot and asks Locke if he knows Adam Stewart, who claims to be a retired computer entrepreneur from Ontario and who has asked Peter's mother to marry him. Talbot says Stewart used to be known as Anthony Cooper, and he was able to trace Locke as the donor of a kidney to Stewart. And then Peter has an uneasy feeling about Stewart and wants to find out if he is a good man. Locke claims it was an anonymous kidney donation and he cannot help him. That night, the rescue party, back to our current time, splits up to the guard Jack's bungalow as Kate snakes in. She finds Jack playing the piano. Interesting. And when he notices her, he is surprised and angry and tells her to leave immediately because he is being watched by cameras. Guards burst in, and Kate is captured, and Saeed is dragged in also. When Kate is interrogated by the guards, she lies and does not know or does not mention Locke and Russo that are still around. Locke surprises Ben in his room with a gun drawn. Locke asks Ben where the submarine is, and Ben claims ignorance until Locke mentions that he killed Mikhail. Alex comes in, and Locke takes her hostage. When Tom knocks on the door, Locke takes Alex into the closet while Tom and Richard Alpert enter to inform Ben that Kate and Saeed have been found in the barracks and captured. Ben orders that they be separated. Tom goes to carry out the orders, and Ben asks Alpert to bring him the man from Tallahassee. When he leaves, Locke sends Alex to retrieve Saeed's backpack as he holds Ben hostage. Back to our flashback, John Locke confronts his father at a flower shop preparing for the wedding. He demands that Anthony Cooper call off the wedding and leave the state. He tells Anthony Cooper that Peter is on the way to the con, or is onto the con, and threatens to tell Mrs. Talbot the truth. Anthony Cooper Anthony Cooper tells John Locke that he will leave and call off the wedding. Back to our current time. Ben asks for help getting into his wheelchair. Then Locke shows reluctance. Ben promises no tricks and that he just wants some dignity. He says that Locke should understand what that means. Ben asks how Locke will pilot the submarine and what is in the pack. He finds out that Locke has C4 explosives from the communications station and that he plans to destroy the submarine. I know you, John Locke, says Ben. He outlines Locke's life, saying he knows he spent 4 years in a wheelchair and that he knows how Locke ended up in it. He asks if it hurt, and a bitter John Locke replies, I felt my back break. What do you think? That's not what Ben was referring to. We'll find out later. Kate hands our cuff behind her back, and she is being held in a recreation room with a pool table. She is working to free herself when Tom comes in. He is with Jack and warns Jack to be careful in here, pointing to his ear in the ceiling, indicating that the room is indeed bugged. Jack tells Kate that this is where they live and that the kidnapped people and children are safe. When Kate asks if he is with them now, Jack claims not to be with anyone. She confronts him about why he is acting this way, and he admits that they have agreed to let him go home the next morning and that he can get help for everyone. They draw near to one another, but when Jack mentions saving Sawyer's life for her, Kate asks, what did they tell you? Their moment is interrupted by Juliet, who's looking fine as can be, and obviously Kate is not happy about Juliet. Juliet coming in to get him so they can leave on the submarine. Jack whispers in Kate's ear that he will come back for her after he escapes. Back to our flashback. One day as he arrives home, Locke is met by Detective Mason and Detective Reed, who ask if he knows Peter Talbot. They tell Locke they know he came to Locke's apartment. When Locke claims Peter was just trying to sell him something, the detectives tell him that the Talbots are worth $200 million and that Peter Talbot is now dead. Wow, okay. Back to current time. Ben says while he was imprisoned in the hatch, he couldn't ask John how he was walking around without telling him who he really was. When he invites Ben to ask him now, John suggests he still will not know who Ben really is. Ben seeks confirmation that Locke could walk immediately after the crash. Locke says that Ben is wondering why he too is not recovering as fast as he would like, and then Ben suggests that Locke is afraid that if he leaves the island, he will be back in a chair, and that's why he wants to destroy the submarine. Alex goes to get the pack from our newest henchman, Ryan, who is guarding Saeed, who is handcuffed to a swing set. Saeed tells her she looks like her mother. And then Alex is like, my mother is dead, she says. And he replies, I'm sure that's what they told you, before being hit by Ryan and told to keep his mouth shut. Locke asks where the electricity comes from, and Ben says sarcastically that they have two giant hamsters running in a wheel. And then Ben has photos of Alex throughout her childhood, displaying proudly in frames on his wall. Ben tries to convince Locke to leave the submarine alone because he would have a big problem with people if Locke were to destroy it. He says that he was born on the island, but many of the others weren't, and though they love the island and would do anything to defend it, they need to know that they can leave it if they want to. And then the sub maintains that illusion. Ben promises to show John Locke things he wants to see very badly. He tells Locke to imagine that the island contains a very large box that can manifest anything one wishes for. And then Locke sarcastically suggests Ben should wish for a new submarine. And he says Ben is a hypocrite and a Pharisee for using electricity and guns. He says that Ben has no idea what the island really is. And Ben asks how Locke thinks he knows the island better than he does. And Locke replies, because you're the one in the wheelchair and I'm not. Alex returns with the bag and Locke demands that she take him to the submarine. Ben pleads one more time, telling Locke about his deal with Jack. He tells Locke that the submarine will leave in an hour with Jack, and that it will never come back because the magnetic anomaly disabled their communications. Alex tells Locke that Ben was manipulating him because that is what he does. She tells him that he makes you think it's your idea, but really it is his, to which Locke replies that he will have to keep that in mind. She shows Locke to the dock, and he apologizes for involving her. And then we see Danielle Russo watching Alex from the trees. Locke enters the empty submarine and looks around, turning on the lights. Ben is visited by Jack and Juliet at his house. Jack asks for one last favor, that his friends be released after he is gone. Ben agrees to let them go, shaking Jack's hand and giving his word to let them go just as soon as you left the island. Juliet thanks him for keeping his promise. Locke leaves the sub bathed in sweat and confronted by Ryan and the others with Jack and Juliet. Jack answers Locke that what he is doing there. Locke apologizes to Jack just as the submarine explodes. And then Locke, in our last flashback, goes to Anthony Cooper's high-rise suite and demands to know if he killed Peter Talbot. Anthony Cooper claims Mr. Talbot called off the wedding due to the boy's death, leaving him with no angle to make any profit. Anthony Cooper pours 2 glasses of McCutcheon Scotch whiskey, sipping from one. Locke refuses the whiskey. Cooper says he's a conman, not a murderer, and Locke can call Mrs. Talbot and ask her. And then as Locke reaches for the phone, Cooper lunges and pushes him through his window. He plummets 8 stories and lands on his back. So now we know why John Locke was in a wheelchair. Locke is badly injured and hospitalized. The detectives visit him and tell him that Cooper fled to Mexico and disappeared. When they leave, Locke's therapist tries to bring a positive attitude to the deeply depressed Locke. He brings in a wheelchair and carries a resistant and unsettled Locke to it. Locke claims he can't do it, but the therapist responds, "John, you fell 8 stories out of a window and survived. I don't want to hear what you can't do." And then Locke stares at his immobile toes and cries. And John Locke is cuffed in an industrial room when Ben and Richard enter. Locke guesses that Ben wanted him to destroy the submarine, and Ben confirms that Locke made his dream come true by leaving Jack unable to leave the island, but without Ben having to obviously, break his promise on his own promise. And then Ben tells Albert to uncuff John. And Locke asks sarcastically about the magic box, and Ben says he will show him what came out of it. Ben tells Locke that when he asked him earlier if it hurt, he was asking not about the physical pain, but what it felt like when Locke's own father tried to kill him. So he knows. He guesses that Locke is afraid of Anthony Cooper and that the island is the one place Cooper can never find him. Locke has some communion with the island and makes him very important. Ben unlocks the door, revealing the man from Tallahassee, Anthony Cooper, bound and beaten with a gag in his mouth. Anthony Cooper's reaction to seeing Locke is a mixture of shock and fear, and John's reaction is shock and one word: Dad? And that's what ends this episode of Lost. So really good episode. I'm going to give it a 9.6 out of 10. I really liked our reveal that, we've got Anthony Cooper now on the island. We know what happened to John Locke and why he's in a wheelchair. And we got some more stuff about Ben. So I really like this one. Character of the episode, John Locke, hands down. And then Benjamin Linus did really good as well. And so you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please don't forget to Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are on this episode of Lost. What would you rate the episode, and who would you choose as a character of the episode or characters? And remember, the legendary Crazy Coffee Man will be in the comment section as well. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel, join the team, share your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.